First of all, thanks for coming in.
And I apologise for the interruption.
In relation to the previous group that we had in, and in relation to your planning going forward, the nature restoration law is a new law proposed in Europe that has consequences for the marine areas. What forward planning has been done on that? I know that the law has only been in progress for the last year. It has been voted on the, I think, the 26th to the 28th of February or something like that in Brussels. Where do you see the consequences for Irish fishing fleet because of that law in relation to the marine?
Thank you, Deputy. I suppose in preparation for today, my focus has been on the Commission proposals, but to briefly touch on the nature restoration law, it is a significant development. It is requiring significant interaction between all people involved in operating at sea. I think the main issue for ourselves is to ensure that the cognizance is taken of the existing operations, whether that's fishing at sea, and that any measures that are taken, and again, I suppose my own department isn't the department responsible for implementation of the NRL.
You're not the lead department.
And that we would engage heavily with them, with the lead department, in order to look at any issues arising from the nature restoration law and its implementation. And
has there been any engagement between your department? Say it's Arts, Heritage and Gaeltacht that seems to be the lead department in it, because you have areas like, at the moment, probably the Porcupine Bank is designated, but this will put another layer on, you know, there's talk about 30% of areas, and I know that the marine part of it has been watered down a bit, but there's like targets that you have to achieve. Have ye had any engagement as yet with, say, we'll say a multidisciplinary department overall, that all the departments get together to understand the consequences and are the things that you'll be looking at in putting in on fishing vessels for using or for fishing in those areas that'll be pinpointed? Because Ireland is down under that nature restoration law as having basically a large sea area, which we have. Has there been meetings in which, had your department any meetings with the lead group or with the Department of Agriculture or with any other department, housing, in relation to this law, because it's around the bend in a month's time?
Our department has engaged with the lead department, Deputy, and in terms of the targets, you're correct, they're very ambitious and delivery will be complex, and I think you mentioned the potential economic impacts on our industry. The consultation is ongoing and the obligation is on Member States to put in place restoration measures on at least 20% of its seas by 2030. So officials in my own area, with the advice of the Minister, have been engaging with the other departments responsible, and I'm not in a position to go into any detail as I don't have it with me today.
Well, yeah, I'm not asking to go into detail. What I'm saying is, has there been meetings over the nature restoration law between say ye in the fishing area as well as Arts, Heritage and Gaeltacht? It's a straight question, yes or no.
I'm not clear on Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. I am clear on on Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. My own teams have met with the Department of Housing team, which is leading out on it.
It comes under that, just that you know. And do you envisage problems or more regulations for fishermen under that?
I envisage that any of the measures that Ireland has to take will have to be considered and applicable, and I haven't looked at any of the individual measures at this point. So in terms of the burden on fishers, I'm not clear on what that will be, but I am clear on the sense that we will have to work with our industry to implement any measures that are necessary.
Right. The previous group that was in spoke about, and I'm no expert on fish now, I want to be clear on that, I'm fairly well inland, but they spoke about, is it bluefin tuna, is what you call them? That because water or weather has changed, that there is a lot of them on the Irish coast and that they cannot fish them. Is there any attempt at EU level by Ireland being made to facilitate that we would get, my understanding is that other boats from other nationalities can come into our area and fish them, and what I am inquiring is, because of this change, is there any quota being fought for or being given to Ireland to facilitate our fishermen?
Thank you, Deputy. So bluefin tuna, as you mentioned, is a highly migratory stock. It spawns in the Mediterranean and then it migrates all over the northeast Atlantic to feed. We do not have a national quota. Ireland does not have a national quota for bluefin tuna. And the only way to obtain a share of that EU quota would involve changing the relative stability key within the European Union. And that would require a majority of member states to agree under the qualified majority voting system to reallocate some for Ireland. Ireland does have a small bycatch bluefin tuna, and that's primarily for use in our albacore tuna fishery and the Celtic Sea herring fishery, where there can be bycatch, and you need to account for that under the landing obligation. The Minister has, on several occasions over the last number of councils, made a case to reopen that allocation key in order to secure a quota for Ireland. As you can imagine, naturally that's resisted by those member states who do hold the quota at the moment, but it is something the Minister has addressed regularly and will continue to push for at EU level.
Can you explain to me, from a person that wouldn't have the in-depth knowledge of it, that we have one of the largest sea areas in Europe, and there would be a lot of discontent among the fishermen that they would feel that others have got a proportion of of the fish that's in our area. Can that be revisited? That would give more quota, especially to the smaller operations. I'm not talking about the big. I see some of the boats, if you can watch it on a nap there, some boats come in towards our area and they can mop up, it's like they can mop up a huge amount of fish, compared with it's nearly like the commercial farm and the family farm. Is there anything that can be done for the smaller operators to make them more sustainable? Because the previous speakers that was in here are saying that it is getting more difficult.
I think, Deputy, all of the fishing opportunities are dealt with in the context of sustainability and ensuring future stocks for, I suppose, future generations of fishers. So all quotas that are determined by Council are in the context of scientific advice on how to fish those. Within the Irish system, there are several policies that have been determined by the Minister and are published on how that quota is distributed between the fleet, and that has to take into account a number of factors, and any changes to those policies would be a matter for the Minister to take
So
away.
the Minister can change the policy to help the smaller, or whichever way he wants to go, can he?
On policy matters, it's a matter for the Minister.
Okay, so the Minister has the right to do that. In relation to, you might bring me through a small, and maybe
Can I just
Yeah.
go back one step with you? In respect of any changes to policy, the Minister will have to go through a rigorous process that includes public consultation. It's not a matter of a stroke of a pen. There is a full process which includes a full public consultation, review of scientific data. All of those matters would have to be considered by the Minister in making his policy, but that's a policy matter then.
Deputy Fitzmaurice, we'll come back to you.